What's up, guys? Matt here coming at you with another thrilling release from Redcat. I am so pumped right now. Redcat is just out to kill right now. And one of my favorite releases last year was the Ascent 10 scale. This truck right here, still probably my favorite 10 scale to drive at the moment. And they've since came out with the Ascent 18, which you know is right up my alley. If you watch the channel a lot, you know I've got the micros everywhere. And now they've taken the Ascent and put the Fusion in it, but they didn't just stop there. So this thing's actually packed with upgrades. Like, they had told me about the carbon fiber chassis and the Fusion in this, and I was like, that's freaking sweet. And then I get it and I unbox it, and I'm like, dude, what? You didn't tell me about all this other stuff. Like, this thing is the top-notch premium Ascent right here, okay? So first off, you can see down here, it's got the carbon fiber chassis, it's got the Fusion, and it's got brass portal covers on the front already. That's just scratching the surface of the upgrades on this thing. All right, so if we pull up the back here of the box, you can see a few other things. I'm just going to talk about it. But first off, we've got plastic bead locks now. So these are bead locks. A lot of people really like these tires, and they are really, really, really good stock tires. Actually, pretty solid tires overall. So now that we have bead locks, it's very easy to take these apart. If you want to add a dual stage foam in there or something like that, you can do that very easily. So it's nice that they gave us the bead locks, not to mention they gave us this murdered out freaking truck. It's just sick. I'm telling you, I'm a Kentucky fan. Black and red is not my colors, but I don't even want to change anything on this truck. It looks so good. And part of the reason why it all fits so well is all of the little touches in here. We're going to zoom in on this thing so you can see the upgrades, the cross braces. All of this has been upgraded. Unreal the amount that they've put into this for $100 more. This thing's going to be $399. Okay, the Fusion is going to cost you almost that. You know, they're $70-80. So you're getting all this other stuff basically free, and you don't even have to put it in. So like I mentioned, the colors on this body just work so well. The red just pops on that black perfectly, and all of the little touches of detail, you can see they added in red wheel nuts. They've got the red spacers on the or washers on the cross braces and stuff. And it all just comes together so well. You've got red diff covers, front and rear. And now we've got these new metal bumpers, which give us a little more clearance and definitely just going to stiffen things up a little bit. And looks like a perfect spot for a winch, front and rear on this thing. So very impressed with the hardware on this truck, as well as just the upgrades they have installed inside of it. So taking a quick look at these trucks side by side, you can see I've made a lot of upgrades to this truck, and it's not really that it needed it. It's just what we do. You know, it's what I do when I get a hold of one of these trucks that I really, really like, is I just start upgrading and changing things. You got to make it your own, right? One of the first things I did, though, was this Fusion. And you can see now that's already installed, which is very nice. You don't have to deal with installing it. But also look at how low this one sits versus this one. So they've lowered this motor 6.65 millimeter, I believe it is, but it looks like it's way more, honestly. So that's very nice. One thing that will do is it will make it hard to go servo on axle like this. It's a very tight fit to fit that fourth link in up here. I don't think you're going to get that done with this version. But another upgrade that they've tossed in here that they don't even mention, I didn't see it on the box or anything. We now have a steel pinion in here. Okay, versus this brass one that came on the other truck. I know that was something that a lot of people kind of nitpicked. So we've got an upgrade there. These shocks, it seems like they've maybe took the springs out of the inside. Definitely on the rear, there's no spring on the inside anymore. So I think they've kind of looked at what everybody was doing with these and changed that up. I'll have to pull the fronts apart to see it. Feels like it could possibly have a very light spring in it. I'm not sure. But you can see it doesn't droop all the way down. You can pull it a little bit farther. So we'll have to check that and see. But a very nice touch with the red caps on the black shocks. So one other thing they've did is they shortened up this rear end a little bit on these chassis rails, so that bumper is tucked way in. You probably can't tell at this angle, but the bumper on mine is way back here. So bringing that in has definitely shortened that up. This is lengthened a little bit, so it's hard to judge that, but they did shorten these rails up just a little bit, and these bumpers are definitely tucked in a little more. These were some very high clearance bumpers to begin with, and now they are just like almost a flush mount style bumper. So you're not going to be able to run the full body on here unless you do some modifications to the body or the truck here because of all of this now. This is just set up to run the half cab, but they give us body post here for our pins, which helps secure that half cab very easily. And I just like all of the black links all the way through. We've got black links on the bottom, black steering links. It all just works well with the blacked out edition of this truck. So I like how Redcat incorporates the battery strap into the slider here with these slits for your strap. I do go ahead and put a piece of Velcro on the bottom of this, or the top of this slider, I guess you would say, in the bottom of my battery, because with just this strap, my battery would sometimes slide out the front on my other Ascent. I normally try to also strap my leads around like that to keep it from getting in the spur. This has a very good servo in it, probably the best RTR servo out there that I've ran anyways. You know, I haven't ran everything. Now, we've got the same 2.4 gigahertz transmitter, 4-channel. You're not using channel 3 or 4 in this, but it gives you room to expand. And then another thing that Redcat does with this truck, which I really like because it's one of the first things I did to mine, was put the underdrive gears in here. So this has the 20% underdrive to the rear installed out of the box. And then you also get the optional 10% underdrive for the rear and 0%. So you can run this however you want. But for me personally, I'm going to go with that 20%. So it's nice that it's already installed. It's one less thing I got to do. And then here you'll see with this Fusion, the slow crawl is insane. This truck really is just ready to hit the rocks. So let's take it out and hit them. So you can probably tell this thing is super smooth, super quiet with the Fusion, very, very smooth and controlled. Obviously, I think pretty much most everybody has seen the Fusion work now. And to me, it's just the absolute best thing you can put in these crawlers. It's really probably one of the best things invented for crawling in the last 10 years, in my opinion. And it's just so smooth. Look at it work. Now, I do wish they would make a Fusion that was 4S capable. That's one thing I wish they would do. But on 3S, the thing's got plenty of wheel speed and power and so smooth and controlled. Look at that. And this truck, it's really balanced out well. With the little bit of brass to the front, it does a lot of uphill stuff really well. You can see there it goes downhill really well. Man, I'm just so impressed with this little truck. It's really just perfect. Having the front shocks limited still kind of limits your travel a little bit, but you can see here it does flex way more than the original Ascent out of the box. Anytime you got sideways like I just did right there with the original Ascent, it would just dump out because it had like no travel at all with the front and rear limited. So I think it was a good move, just kind of limiting the front and leaving all of that flex and travel in the rear. You can see here with the added weight to the front, it helps keep the front down. And with those front shocks being limited, it keeps that body tucked a little closer to the axle, keeps it from pulling back and dumping out. And that's a pretty steep little climb for a stock truck right there. And it pulls it no problem. These tires overall did pretty dang well out here. They are very, very sticky when you take this truck out of the box, like a great feel to them. And overall, a solid tire. Like I said, I think a dual stage foam in these obviously are going to help you tremendously when crawling. But I didn't notice the tire folding too much because this truck is not set up like crazy heavy. You know, it just has that little bit of brass in the front, which gives it the weight it kind of needs. And that's really it. Those downhill lines that I just pulled is one place where the stock electronics in the original Ascent
kind of struggled a little bit. You would kind of notice when going downhill, it was a little bit harder to get a real nice creep and controlled slow crawl going downhill. And then also your jump from forward to reverse in that thing. Reverse was really pretty jumpy. Besides that, the electronics were pretty solid in the original truck. And this Fusion is kind of what we've all done, or a lot of people have done to this truck that I've seen. And so it's pretty cool that Redcat is just kind of paying attention to what we're all doing. And then they're giving us all of these other upgrades. You know, the chassis alone, the carbon fiber, I think that kind of just all adds up to a little better performance. You know, those rails are definitely going to be lighter than the original rails. And that's probably an $80 to $100 upgrade right there if you go buy a carbon fiber chassis for this thing. And then everything else is just kind of tossed in. You know, you're getting the Fusion and all the other little touches and updates. So there's just so much value in this truck. I can't wait to get a hold of a set of these rails for my other Ascent. You know, I want to kind of build these two differently. My other one, I really, really went like crazy performance with it, and it's one of the best 10 scale trucks I have. I mean, as far as a rail truck that, you know, runs a body and everything, I mean, it's pretty dang good. And it's actually pulled some lines that I've only seen 3 other trucks run, you know, or 3 or 4 other trucks pull. So it's a very impressive truck. This one, I've got an idea. I'm going to go a little different route, and it's just something I kind of want to do. And so definitely stay tuned for that. I'll be posting that video soon as well. But man, I had a blast with this truck. It's so nice just getting something like this and taking it out of the box and just going and running it, and it being so good. You know, I didn't feel like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do that. Like it really is good. Here, I kind of put this thing through it a little bit here, and I didn't put half of the clip in here of me trying to get up this, because I tried this quite a few times and I had a really good bounce like twice. I started kind of punching it, trying to just hop up this. I think this truck would have got this if I'd have stuck with it long enough, but I was just beating the daylights out of this body, and it's so pretty. Like, it was hard to put those scratches on there, you know, but I wanted to show you here just sometimes when you get this thing in a bad bind or take a hard hit, the front latch will pop off, and that's something that happens every now and then on the original Ascent. When you go to the half body, it happens more, and I noticed it happening quite a bit on this one, so that is something you'll kind of have to deal with. Right there, you can see it took that hit, and the front just comes unlatched, and you kind of just have to stretch it a little bit and pop it back on, and then you're good. But that is something you have to deal with a little bit. It's really not that big a deal, but I just kind of wanted to warn you guys that does happen with this truck a little more, being that it's just the half cab setup. But I beat this thing up pretty good. It took quite a few pretty like larger falls, you know, and I wedged it in here and there and crammed on it, and it just really gave it a beating. And I didn't have any issues with anything, just like my other Ascent. You know, over time I have broke a few things on that, but nothing that's just like a terribly like weak link. But overall, the things are pretty dang tough. So the shocks seem to work really well for me with the setup that they have going on. Removing that inner spring on the rear gives you a lot more travel, and it just makes the truck flex and roll through rougher stuff a little better. I'm one of those people who will also remove the springs on the inside of the front shocks and just throw some hair bands around them. I'm big on the hair bands. They just work for me. You know, you kind of get the same effect. It limits the shock, but you get all of your travel when it does drop that front tire. Whereas having the spring on the inside, you're kind of limiting the shaft. You know, you're losing the space that spring takes up, so you don't get as much travel overall. Hopefully that makes sense. But you know, and some people say, well, if you're running those shock bands, it's covering up other issues, your truck's not set up right or whatever, but it is what it is. Run what you want. But for me, I pretty much run those bands on everything, and they just work for my setups. So use what works for you. The other thing about this truck is it's really nice and quiet. It's all metal gears besides the transmission. It's still plastic gears in the transmission, but I haven't had any issues with the gears in this transmission at all. But I think owners of the original Ascent can vouch for me here when I say the side hill and starting onto an obstacle on a side hill like this right here was very, very tough with the original truck. I don't think I would have even got right there and this thing would have dumped. And you can see there now we're getting more flex out of that rear, which is allowing us to come up onto rocks like this sideways at an angle instead of having to hit everything straight on. With the original truck, I really kind of noticed I had to hit things more straight on or I didn't have a chance. And this one actually runs really, really well. Like I said, for out of the box, like the thing, I've driven trucks that people have built and spent a lot of hours building that was nowhere near as good as this truck. So for somebody like that just wants to buy a truck, take it out of the box and go run it, this is about as good as it gets. For me personally, I could even just get this truck and change the wheels and tires, just because the tires are good for stock tires, but one tire doesn't always work well everywhere. I think with this climb right here, I would have got up this a lot easier with just a different style tire. So that's probably the only thing I would even have to do to this truck is wheels and tires. And you could get away with the stock tires for a very long time, honestly.
This is the wind I'm dealing with, guys. Crazy. Freaking beautiful out here, though. Look at that.
So there was a storm rolling in. I was dealing with some pretty bad wind, so a lot of this I'm just trying to chime in and cover up bad audio. But I'm not lying when I say this thing took some beatings, man. I launched it off of stuff and dropped it, and it took a beating, as well as my Radio Link radio here. Look, right into the thing. That radio it's actually been very tough. I left that thing outside on my tailgate of my truck one night. I forgot it, and it poured down rain. And I came out the next morning and I thought, oh, that thing's shot. And it's worked good for 2 months since then. Like, not had a single issue out of it. So far, I got to say that thing's been really tough as well. But you can see I moved down to some of this stuff here is what we run a little more often when we come out to this spot. And man, some of the stuff this truck was pulling was amazing. For a stock truck, unbelievable some of the stuff it pulled. There's another fall. You know, I left some of these fails in here so you guys could see I don't pull everything first lick, you know. And it did take a beating. I mean, I was pretty tough on it, but just some of these climbs right here, this is a tough one because it's as soon as you start to get up onto that rock, you run into another rock. It's just kind of a step up, I call them. And the fact that these tires are grabbing and biting and pulling up on this is really good. And the truck just got it done, man. I was so impressed with this line. So I was really impressed with that line. I actually had to go back and hit it again because I enjoyed it so much. And I think this angle shows a little bit better how good a climb this is. For a stock truck, this is just unbelievable. This is something that just doesn't get done with a stock truck. I've took quite a few other stock trucks out of the box that are supposed to be really good and can be built to maybe be good, but they had no chance at pulling this line. And this truck just, it has that little added weight with the brass to the front. It's a little lighter up top with the chassis, I think. and the motor being a little bit lower, it all just adds up, and it really just helps performance. And the OG Ascent was really, really good, but it seemed like I had to go add some weight to that thing to get more performance out of it. I had to change the wheels and tires right off the bat to feel like I was getting anywhere near what I'm getting out of this truck already. So I'm very impressed with the way this truck ran. One thing that I kind of forgot that I did to my original Ascent, and I had wished I'd done to this before I went out, is just go ahead and trim those front fenders, because you can probably hear them catching quite a bit. And yeah, that's just something that I had to do on the original one, and I'm going to do to this body as well. But, you know, that's a very minor thing. And just gaining that little bit of clearance on the body, because you do get some rubbing on it. And I kind of wish they had went ahead and designed this body, changed it a little bit, which I understand they're trying to make it work with, you know, the original body and everything. But if they just kind of went ahead and slid that half cab back a little bit, where it kind of lined up with the sliders more, and then we would have gained that clearance where we hit the tires in the front, I think it would have worked a little better overall. To me, this thing always kind of looked a little odd running just the half cab, just because the body and the sliders don't really match up. But that's kind of nitpicking stuff. But I mean, all in all, the truck looks amazing.
And the electronics in this thing is just really good. The servo is really good. The Fusion obviously is the best, in my opinion. You're getting the carbon fiber chassis, the aluminum cross braces, all of that stuff. It really is just a lot there for the price. And it's funny because I've seen a lot of people kind of saying they wanted to see a carbon fiber Ascent or a Fusion Ascent, and then this did kind of get leaked a little bit here recently on Facebook with a picture that was posted, and but people had no idea, I don't think, what was coming with this, because they have just really packed a lot of punch in here for this price.
So for me, this is the best RTR I've ever pulled out of a box as far as crawlers. I did pick up another truck that's similar in price that I think is going to be really good, but it is a little more pricey. But stay tuned for that comparison. All I can say is if you are a fan of the original Ascent, you're going to flip over this truck because there's so much more value in it. And if you didn't pick up the original Ascent, but you thought about it, like, I guess you were the smart one, because now is the time to pick up this one. For the price difference, you're getting so much more. And, you know, I've always been a Redcat fan. And people will say, like, they sent me this truck, so I'm going to talk good about it. And I promise you on my life that there was no stipulations with this truck. Redcat said, take it, run it, make your video. And there never is with any of these companies, because I just tell them, like, I'm not willing to sign anything saying that I have to be 100% positive. I've stuck to that gun from day one, and I will always be that way. If the servo's bad, I'm going to tell you. If something breaks, I'm going to tell you. That's just how I am. But people will believe it or they won't. But anyways, this is my first 10 scale truck. Let's talk about something positive. This truck, look at it. I mean, the hard body sitting 15 feet in the air, like, it was crazy. But I absolutely loved this truck. This is the crawler that started my entire habit of crawling. I mean, it really is what got me hooked, and I owe that to Redcat. I just want to say thanks to them for what they've always done and offered us the best they can at the best price they can. You know, if I couldn't have picked this crawler up for really, really cheap, I would not have ever bought a crawler. I just wouldn't. Back in the day, I liked to race. I liked to go fast. I liked to bash. And I looked at crawlers and I thought, why would anybody want to do that? Like, that's got to be so boring. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, well, I'm going to pick one of these up. And I got this truck for like $150 or something back in the day, I think. And it even had like some metal gears, like upgraded or something, you know. And from that point, I was hooked. So thanks to Redcat for doing what they do and for sending me this truck and not expecting anything out of it. I just really do appreciate them. And I've always
had a spot for Redcat. I mean, I just really have. They were my first 10 scale crawler. They were my first 24 scale crawler. I wish I had some pictures of the old Sumo, but I just don't. But there's a couple clips of the old thing running, and I've been thinking about building that truck back. I still have all of the pieces and parts somewhere. I think I can get it back together. I'm probably going to have to do that because I need to get that back together and just put it on the shelf. But I appreciate you guys sticking around this long. I know I'm blabbing on. It's kind of boring, but thank you so much, and let me know if you need anything. Peace.